Hey y'all, this is episode 4 of In My Opinion. My name is Constance, or you can just call me CJ.
I'm Marquise, Mark Allen, whatever you want to call me. How y'all doing?
Alright, so today's topic we're talking about should black kids go to private schools? And me and Marquise are just kind of talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Does it make them well rounded? Is it better for them? Or does it kind of like push them out of our community in some sense?
Um, I think it, in the sense of society, technically, yeah, we would say it makes them well rounded. But as far as like the black community, I think it definitely pushes them out of the community. Because just even looking at it now, let's say how we grew up for a little bit in our youth in the inner city.
Right.
So we knew what it was like going to school, playing outside. You know, we don't have the most. We, kind of struggle a little bit. You figure it out.
Yeah.
You see your parents struggle a little bit. But then, like, the later, my younger brother, my younger sisters, they see our parents when they're established and not in their 20s like we are.
Yeah.
Like how we trying to figure out life right now. They were trying to figure out life, but also trying to figure out life with kids. So now that they're older and more established, they think and look at it like, oh, maybe I should send them to this school. I think it'd be better just because of the quote unquote what they see online about it, the reviews and comments and the standards from the state. Like, oh, if you send them here, then that'd really be good. But I think based off of society standards, it probably makes them well-rounded society. And then with the black community, it kind of pushes us away.
Yeah. I got a different perspective.
I mean, I know you went to all different types of schools.
I went to because you always joke about how I know so many people and whatnot. Because I went to all 4 settings, all 3 settings.
Right.
Yes, I went to private, I went to public, I went to inner city, and I went to suburban.
You ever went to like a charter school?
No, I never went to charter school.
Okay,
so that's the only one I didn't
went
go
to a charter school like through 2nd through 3rd grade.
So
I can say it's different, but it was in the inner city. It was different. I would say it's different, definitely different than the public education. I don't really know about the private school.
So when I was young, I went to Forest Hill Parkway. So that was an inner city school in Cleveland.
Okay.
And to me, I don't know if I really felt like it was a difference at the time because I was in the gifted and talented program. That's what they called it.
Okay.
But I was in kindergarten. I was real young, so it really wasn't, a big difference. And then when I moved to Cleveland Heights, I felt like I was fine. I got to, I went to Cleveland High Schools. That was fine, because it was kind of like,
right,
diverse.
Yeah.
So it was a couple, but then when I got to Lutheran East, private school is different, but my private school was small and it was pretty much all black. We probably had like 3 white kids in that private school. So I don't think I got the traditional private school feel, but I did find out the social economics aspects of that private school and just the standard of what they expected. Like I remember in 10th grade, like I had to write a 10-page or 15-page paper comparing the Passion of Christ to the First Testament.
Right.
Like, what was the difference? Was this real? Like, we had to watch that movie. And I'm like, what the fizz? Like, you want me to write a 10-page paper, 15-page paper on Jesus?
Right. Especially at a young age.
Yeah.
So then, I don't mean to cut you off, but when you say something like that, so when I think, before we get into that, let me say, when I think of private school, I think of you dressed up in a uniform, you got to wear a sports coat, the boys have to wear the khaki pants, the girls have to wear the little skirt and the sweater and stuff. So that's what I think of. And I think of like in a community where it's like gated and you see all of these parents pulling up with these cars and all of that. And then, so that's just what I think about. But then back to what you were saying, you had to write a 10-page paper about the Passion of the Christ. So I look at it like when you go to private schools, I feel like there's a lot of religious aspects of it that don't necessarily line up with how we are brought up.
Yeah, because my school was Lutheran.
Right.
So I wasn't raised Lutheran. I was raised Seventh-day Adventist.
Right. So then growing up in the community, you have all types of denominations in the church. But then when you look at it from the perspective of the private schools, there's always a lot of Catholic. And I don't think we always relate to that. So how do you think you dealt with that side of stuff, especially like you said, you grew up Seventh-day Adventist?
So at Lutheran school, at Lutheran East, where I was at Lutheran East, that we had church. So we had like a chapel every Tuesday and Thursday, and you got the word. And the word was a little different from what you probably used to hearing.
Right.
But our song selection, because I feel like our administration at Lutheran East recognized this school is predominantly black, so we need to have something that is going to correlate with our students to get them in the spirit. And they didn't really care about what it was, as long as it was in the spirit. Yeah, so like we had this guy named Pastor Wright, rest in peace, Pastor Wright, but he used to sing melodies from heaven. Right. And like even to this day, you know, like me and my one teammate and my close friend Bettina, if that come on, we in the club, we don't care words that we melodies
in the
we
club,
hear. Yeah, come on in the club and in the night sometimes. And we in there, we praising it, but I feel like they recognize that as far as structure though. Yeah, it was tight. Like, you had to have a belt on. Like, if you wore those khaki pants, your khaki pants had belt loops, you had to have a belt on. Your shirt, it was no, like, oh, the gray. No, it was white, royal blue. The hoodie had to be a Lutheranese hoodie. You had to purchase that. And like I said, fortunately enough, we had a coach that cared about us, and he was able to find funding to get us that. But those hoodies was expensive. Right. So it's like when you go to school like that and you can't afford those things, like how does that get by? And then secondly, the shoes too. Like you had to wear penny loafers, and we had.
Oh, I didn't know you had to wear penny loafers.
You had to wear loafers, and you can wear boots. They let us wear polo boots, Nike boots, and Timbs. Okay. But anything other than that, it was a no. Oh, you can wear black forces, but you know how that goes.
Black forces. Right. So then do you think that helped you? Like the uniform, the standards, you got to wear this, you got to wear that. Do you think as a black kid growing up and having that private school standard, I would say, do you think that helped you in the long run?
I think academically and that standard, yeah, I did. Because once I got the brush, I'm like, this is a piece of cake. Right. Like, when I got to my English classes, they're like, oh, read Othello in a week. I'm like, that's it? We got to read Othello in a week? That's what you want from me? I'm like, yeah. Because when I transferred from Lutheran to Brush, because, you know, I came my last 5 weeks, I had 15 credits or 16 credits. We needed 21 to graduate. I was a sophomore with 16 credits. Right. So my last 2 years, like, my school was kind of just, like, filling me up with a bunch of filler classes because I had completed a lot of stuff already.
Okay. So I just, again, going from the perspective of the public school, I felt like, obviously, I think Brush did a good job for us because I took a lot of college prep classes. So by my second half of my junior year, senior year, a lot of my classes were ran solely based off of like, all right, this is what it's going to be in college. So they would give us a syllabus and they say, all right, this is what you're going to do. So I feel like on two hands, that was great. It prepared me for college. But then even going into college, some of that stuff, I feel like might have just been busy work and just something to just get you done. So for me, real quick, compare and contrast the two. Okay. What is the workload like at a private school, and what is the workload like at a public school from your perspective?
From my perspective, the workload, the expectation at Lutheran East was higher than Brush. Like, we got to turn in late work at Brush. Right. At Lutheran East, I don't remember too many of my teachers accepting that. Like, no. Okay. Like, this is the due date. This is the time you have to do it. And this is what we expect. And the standard, like, example, my writing wasn't as strong until I got to Lutheran East. And their standard of writing was like, no, this is what needs to happen. So when I went to Lutheran East, it was just like, okay, well, this is what they're expecting from me. And this is what I have to do. And I have to do this to play basketball. Because, you know, that's what I really kind of went there for or whatever. Because I was supposed to go to Heights. And my dad was not, he was not happy with how they were doing the small schools at the time and how they were structuring her. So that was the decision that was made. When I got to compare and contrast, when I got to Brush, I do think they had a good curriculum, but I don't think their implementation of the curriculum was as effective at Lutheran East.
Okay, that makes sense. I got you. I mean, because when I look at it, it's just like maybe because I had the teachers that really, really was on me and that cared, and I was also in the AVIC program. So we did stuff. So we literally every day we went to class, and it wasn't some people would say it was a humongous study hall, but if you really had your teachers that really was on you, no, it wasn't just no study hall. You had to do this. Oh, I need to see you pull up your grades. I need to see due dates. When's your next exam? When's your next test? And then if you just so happen to be able to get through all of those questions that the teacher asks you, then it's all right. So then why don't you go help somebody else and tutor somebody else? And then that's where they really get you. So I feel like it prepared me. And the private school thing, I always just kind of look at it as just kind of younger college almost.
Yeah.
If it makes sense in a way. Mm-hmm. So then let me ask you this. Do you think that it made you a well-rounded citizen? Because a lot of times from what I look up on like private school stuff, they want you to not only be smart, they want you to be like a good community student and this and, all of the stuff that public schools say that they want you to do, but don't really kind of follow up on.
At Lutheranese or at private schools, the requirement, you have to do community service to graduate. Okay. So I do feel like that was instilled in me, like, oh, you have to do community service. You have to help people who are less fortunate than you. You have to be a part of this community in order. Like, we had to go to soup kitchens. We had to do can drives. Like, we had to go feed the homeless. We had a lot of stuff that we had to do. It was a requirement. And as I got older, I feel like that was instilled in me. But, again, me and you talk about this all the time, Marquise, is that culture shock. When I got to Brush, it was a culture shock.
Just because you were used to the standard that you had at Lutheranese.
Yes, and I think that, too, it was smaller. So Lutheranese, I had 90 kids in my whole building.
Right.
I had 2 floors, 90 kids in the whole building. I knew everybody. We was a family, we're a unit. And then once we got to Brush, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 children in one building. And I didn't feel connected.
You didn't? Okay.
I didn't feel connected. And even my assimilation to Brush, like, we had, the social class at Brush is real.
Right. It is. So
it's real.
So what you saying, the social class, how do you think your social life was when you went to a private school compared to at Brush?
My social life at Lutheranese was not a social life. I just hung out with the whole school was a family, and I mostly hung out with my teammates. Okay. So me and my teammates did every single thing together. We went to other games together. We ate together. We that's how we were. We bonded. We did everything together. We went to a kick it. We was all together. Like, everybody was together. At Brush, like, me and my teammates, of course, we were still close, and we were close like that. But as far as the whole school or my teachers, like, no, they weren't as endearing. I don't think I was really connected. Mm-hmm. I had like maybe 2 teachers that I was like, oh, yeah, like Dr. Jones, of course. Yeah. And then Miss Kelly.
Right.
Everybody else, I can't really say, like, oh.
So then, and beyond the teachers, what about, like, your friend group? Do you think it grew, expanded, or was it kind of... Yeah. Because I feel like you know everybody. So when you say it's a culture shock for you to go to Brush, it seemed like everywhere you go, we know somebody. We went out the state and you knew somebody. I'm surprised you didn't know somebody when we went out the country, but... Did it expand from Brush, or was it kind of already still the same?
I think my friend group really came from basketball. Okay. And, so I think that, and me being a girl and hooping, I always had a lot of male friends, so I always knew people of people. And then, like, oh, that's the girl who used to be hooping at Cumberland. Okay. So there wasn't too many girls who was hooping. But my friend group, I do think it expanded from, I would say, Cleveland Heights and Brush. I don't think Lutheranese really helped my friend group. But socially, I think that my code switching and professionalism to go out in the real world came from Brush. Because I was forced to be around people who didn't look like me, who were of different social classes, higher, way higher, or, somewhat lower, that I had to assimilate and I had to learn how to maneuver in each social class.
Right. And honestly, your perspective is a lot different because I think everybody, even the people that's listening, when you think private school, you're black, you're going to school with a whole bunch of other kids that don't look like you. Mm-hmm. But for you came to Brush where it was like everybody didn't look like you at all. Mm-hmm. And I remember just growing up in schools in inner city, even before I got to the South Euclid School District or whatever, I didn't necessarily have that much diversity. Mm-hmm. And like my friend group or the people that I went to school with. I know this so-and-so lived down the street, so-and-so mom knows my mom, know my grandmother, know all of that type of stuff. So then when I got to this school district and I met different people and just seeing how they interact with each other was completely different. So
Yeah.
I feel like, and even still, I feel like with the private school thing, I feel like a lot of the social life aspect is based off of maybe who your parents are.
Yes.
And that's obviously affects in public schools too, but like the more money I feel like your parents give, the better off in the social aspect of everything at the school is.
So the funny thing is, so Zill has a little sister,
Right.
a younger sister, and she goes to a
Private
pretty wealthy private school. I'm not gonna say which one.
Okay.
And I do think like the social classes, and we talk about the money. Like she had told us when she first got there, I want a Jeep. We're like, girl, you ain't getting no Jeep.
Right.
Like you're not getting a Jeep. Like that's not what your parents, whatever. But being around those people, and even though she's there, she's doing well, academically. She feels like she's strong and all those other things. She's been exposed to a lot of things, but just the culture of that school is out of place. And then being the only one. So how do you find that out? Like, how you feel about that? Like being the spot, the speck.
The speck?
The Dalmatian. That's what it is, the Dalmatian.
The Dalmatian, it kind of makes sense because I kind of feel like that at my job. And it's like the one thing that I have to see myself and work on is I don't want to seem or act like I'm the token black person, right? So what I do is I'm going to be myself regardless. I don't care if I'm with whoever. I'm just going to be myself. So I think it's important, and that comes with being confident. So, and it's hard to say especially when you're in high school, when you're in college and you're younger than what we are, you just pretty much got to be confident regardless of what the situation it is that you're in. And a lot of times people that are in those schools get their confidence from this standard, like, oh, this is the standard, this is what I do, this is what I do. So then not to say you didn't have the confidence, but it might have like kind of
I didn't
shake or challenged your confidence when you came into brush, especially when, all right, so the standard is up here. Because even going to brush, we had kids like, oh, if you tried too hard, there were some stupid kids that would sit up here and try and laugh at you, like, oh, why are you doing this? Even for me in high school, I felt like I didn't want to be carrying all them books. Me carrying all them books, like, who am I going to look like?
Yeah. So
I would literally go out of my way to make sure I go to my locker, I share a locker with somebody else so I can carry the least amount of books as possible. So, because I remember there's people, they have stacks of books, all of this carrying around, and we just laugh.
We had a lot of classes together.
Right. So, and we didn't carry our books. So it's just like, so I'm just saying from the standard, when the people get the confidence from that. So let's say you had your confidence from the standard at Lutheran East, and then you go to brush and people made fun of you for, let's say, being a tryhard. How did you deal with that?
When I got the brush to standard from Lutheran East, I was really getting made fun of from like coming from a private school, and then I had a coach, even though love him to death, but at brush, he would intentionally point out me and another girl who transferred from another school, Regina, who that individually got shut down.
Right.
He would make fun of us like, I don't care if you came from here or you came from there. Like we were always singled out for being from a private school. That's where we came from.
Right.
And I also felt that we got that kind of, we got picked on, I think, a lot because, and not picked on as far as like the kids, but other people that we didn't grow up at Memorial. So we just came in. And I don't think that from there, the politics in that, where I think that's really what affected me more, is that there was always this, oh, y'all remember when? It's like, and it was intentional.
Right.
For me, it was intentional. Like, okay, so y'all gonna keep bringing up stuff about when I didn't go here, and like that's fine. I know y'all reminiscing, but at some point it's like, dang, like why do y'all keep doing this? Like I understand this, and I felt left out. I felt like because I didn't grow up in South Euclid, I grew up in the Heights pretty much. I didn't grow up in South Euclid, and I'm listening to them. I'm like, oh man, like every time I get around, like. It annoyed me. I used to tell you all the time, like, okay, BC, before Constance, before I got here. So it's always been like, dang, I'm left out. And then the politics around the school with basketball. The coach who was there before the coach I had was hired. She told me before she even seen me play, like, yeah, you playing JV. I'm like, who playing JV? I just came from states, baby.
Right.
Like, my team was great. We went 24-1 my freshman year. Who's playing JV?
Right.
Like, she didn't even give me a chance. She didn't even see me play. Didn't see an open gym. She just like, the counselor was like, hey, this is Constant. She just came to transfer. She played basketball, and she just said, you're playing JV. I'm like, how do you just say I'm playing JV and you've never seen me? And I almost quit basketball. I was like, no, I'm cool. Like,
right.
I'm done. I'm just going to go do this volleyball thing and see how that goes.
Yeah, I got you. So I feel like all of that kind of wraps in like the social life aspect. Mm-hmm. So then this one right here, I think this is where the controversy kind of comes in. Okay. So then when you look at private school, public school, and then let me just read, what was that meme that you sent me on IG? It was said, black parents, a rich all-white school is in a better situation for your black child. So from this aspect, how do you think it affects, let's say a black boy whose family comes from money, their parents send him to a private school. How do you think that affects his relationships with the opposite sex?
Well, we had this conversation on time. I feel like, take a deep breath on this one. I feel like with that being said, is that black boys who go to those schools, they're not exposed to black women and the culture of black women. Yep. So the expectation when they started dating, they're not attracted to black women, or vice versa. Black women aren't attracted to them because they're like, oh, well, you know, he's not quote unquote black enough, and vice versa. It's like, oh, she's ratchet or ghetto, because you know I hate the term calling stuff ghetto. Like, oh, her name ghetto. No, her name isn't ghetto. Right. The name comes from, you know, we don't have historic names like, you know, Mary Lou or, you know, Elizabeth. Those things are European, or Dominic from Italy. We don't have those things. So those things, we just trying to form our own culture. We're trying to make names to simulate. So they have that perspective of, oh, this isn't normalized in black culture, or this isn't normalized in the culture that I'm in. So now I'm disassociating with this culture because this is what I'm used to. And I feel like, especially for black men, like I say, I don't care who you date. You can love who you love, whatever, you know, but I'm for black love. Like, that's, you know, where the heart is. But I do feel like a lot of black men do get trampled on when they don't fit that status quo of, you know, what a black man or a black guy is supposed to do. And then it kind of tarnishes their taste in their mouth from a young age of dating a black woman. That kind of goes back to our generational wealth aspect. But yeah. So
like you were saying, how Denzel's little sister goes to a private school, and when she started going there, you're like, oh, she wants a Jeep, right? Just because she saw other people. So I think it's kind of the same thing, just in the relationship standard. It's, they go to this school and they're not really exposed to the, let's say, the black women. They're more so exposed to whatever race, like white women or whatever else that's there. So they feel like that is their norm. I remember I had a conversation with one of the younger dudes that I work with. He just graduated from high school like last year, the year before. And I don't know how we ended up getting on the conversation, but I asked him about the type of women he likes. He's from Colombia. He said, I obviously would like to marry and be in a relationship with a woman that is more of Latin or Hispanic descent. But he's like, I'm not exposed to them in this area right now. So I pretty much he felt like he had to choose from what it is that he had in that area. So I think it's same thing with the Jeep thing. You see all of these other people having this or dating this person, so you feel like that's what you have to do, where I can tie it in and then tie this back in with the social aspect of it. If you have friends or you play sports, if all of your friends that play football, play basketball are dating a white girl and you're just so happen to be dating a black girl, and your friends and their girlfriends don't understand the relationship of how black women are, it could almost force you to like, okay, maybe I should just kind of go with the crowd because, again, the whole confidence thing. So then, and like what I sent you on IG, I said, I feel like the issue is, and this is boys and girls, when young boys go to those schools, they feel the need to date the white girls, but then the black girls that go to the school, they don't want to date the white guys. They want to date the guys that are from the inner city schools.
The thrill.
Right, the thrill, the chase of the bad boy. Like, everybody wants the dude that is supposedly the hood guy or the guy that's, doing whatever. How do you feel about that? Because I know I obviously have my opinions, but what do you think?
So I'm going to take it a step further because, I went to a private college. So my private college was all predominantly white college, and it was a all white women's college prior to our basketball team getting there. And this is a conversation that we had so much. They did not see our black girls in basketball because our team at the time when I first got there, the inaugural players, we were half and half, and then we started to transition to being more ethnic, as I like to say, more black. And we would get in trouble at that school. And there wasn't too many guys to date.
Right.
And even when, when Zell was dating, I was the very few. Was the very few that had a black girlfriend.
Right.
Most of his friends do not have black girlfriends.
Right.
And it's hard to be around. And for me, I'm not going to lie, it is hard sometimes. Like, you want to double date. But it's like, culturally, stuff is different. So we're like, oh, man. Let's go to dinner. Oh, you want to go to dinner at 5 o'clock? No, like, we're going to be hungry again at 5 o'clock. Like, that's their culture. Like,
it is. They eat dinner 5, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and that's their culture. That's their culture, right? So that's the thing. So, like, a lot of his friends, they had white women. And it's, like, different for me, me thinking about, should I say this? Or is this okay? But I've gotten to the point where it's like, it is what it is. Y'all know who I am. But initially, it's like, I'm cool. I don't want no double dates. Like, you can go out with your boys. I'm cool. I'm just hang back. Like, I'm good.
Right. So I think, again, it's just based off of what you feel is presented there. And like you were saying earlier, you may not necessarily have dated the white guys there, and it might have been like a kind of a sticky situation because the last topic we talked about dating or whatever. Do you think like I don't want to say aggressive, but a strong black woman, do you really think a white guy who hasn't really dated a black girl outside of his race, do you think he would really have the confidence to want to come up to somebody that's strong and want to try to date them?
When I was in college, a lot of guys did come and try to approach me. A lot of white guys did come and try to approach me. But I think that it was the opposite. You know how you say the bad boy? It was a thrill. Like, ooh, look at this black loud girl. I want to try that.
Right, kind of like the
she's
same.
Exotic.
Right, like the same thing with black men and the white women. It's kind of like a thrill.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, look at her. Like white men love my braids. Oh my! I get more compliments about my braids than any place than from white men. They like, oh my God, like how long did that take? Ooh, those are so good on you. Make sure I'm like, this is the protective style, bro. Like,
right. I mean, same thing. Like, and white women love to touch my hair. I would go out in certain places, and it was one particular time. I'm walking in somewhere, and this lady's trying to touch my hair. I never looked at her. I just saw her hand going, and I just kind of moved it out the way and ducked up under. And she got upset. She was legitimately upset that I did not let her touch my hair. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know you. No, you're not about to just touch my hair. But again, it's the culture thing, the different aspects of everything. And it's just like, you can't just touch my hair.
Yeah.
Like, if I came up to you and was like, oh, I like this silky hair of yours, you gonna call the police on me, and I'm gonna be called and considered a pervert. Like, no, it should work both ways. Like, no, you're not gonna do that.
I think, do that at all. Just to kind of close in on what we're saying, I think that when you're having children who are going to private school, black or not, I think that it's your job to expose them to different cultures. And I also think it's your job to really let them know, like, this is your black too. Like, you're black. Like, you can do both.
Yeah.
And I also feel that the biggest point that we need to know when black kids go to private school, you got to know the culture of that school. Right. So me going to a private school, I had a good culture at that school, but other people going to private schools, like a higher private school, they didn't fit in. So know your child. And it's really up to you as a parent to expose your child to different things, whether they're higher or lower on the education or academic range, and expose them to different cultures. It's really your job, not just the school's job.
Yep, I agree. So That is it for us today. We'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed everything.
Let us know what y'all thinking.
I'm Mark. This
I'm
is CC.
CC.